The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
NWCA convention time again, sitting here with a friendly, familiar face to those in the world of wrestling. His name is Joe Williamson, a proud Missouri native.
There we go.
Father, husband, imported somebody from Great Britain to come to the United States. That's a treat, especially after that whole 1776 thing. They're still bitter about it. Joe
man.
Williamson, how you been, man?
It's good, Jason. Good to see you, as always.
So let's just, before we even talk about wrestling, married life, the child, how much does that change you?
It's a ton. It changed me a ton. Puts things in perspective. Absolutely love it. It's been great. Met my wife at the Olympics, and that changed life. And then having a kid, whoa. It's work, but it's awesome. It makes everything better.
Yeah, 2012, I want to get into that story a little bit. Not deep dive in Joe's personal life. You see what I almost said there?
Yeah.
In London, there was a limited number of press credentials. Flow Sports didn't get any media credentials for the Olympics that year, but you guys still went. Bader's wearing a singlet in the stands. There's Zeb over there. You guys are over there. Like track, you guys rented like a house, and the track guys and everybody were over there. So what were the Olympics like in 12 for you in that respect, and how did that lead up to meeting your future wife?
Oh, well. We had it's interesting because wrestling was the very end of the Olympics, and somehow Mark Bader talked the Florianis into sending us there because somebody needed to film the opening ceremonies, parties, and all that stuff. So actually met Laura the first night I was there, and we really had no business being there. And throughout the trip, that house that we stayed in, that flat, it ended up more and more people showing up, more people that were friends of Flo's. And at one point it was like, I'm in a bed with Bader and Fenton in this house that's packed. But a 5-minute walk away is this really funny, pretty person with a flat that's quiet. And so as the trip went on, I found myself over there more and more. And, to be honest, we didn't think, when we left, we thought, okay, that's it. And now here we are with a 15-month-old son.
That's just awesome. One cool thing about it, and I'm gonna dial this back. I know it's kind of a soft subject and hard. Your dad passed away a couple years ago in an accident, but in 2009, World Championships, you got to bring your dad, Jack, who I'd never met him until then. It's feel like I'd see him once a year after that, and I'd always felt like I'd known him forever. He's that type of guy. You named your son after your dad.
Yeah.
What was that relationship like with your dad? As a wrestler, but then as you got to be an adult, you went to the World Championship with your dad. It's just a cool story to me.
Yeah, that was such a good trip. I remember court wrestling is what we did together growing up. We on the weekends go to tournaments, and it was about as good as memories I had. And when I got deeper into Flow and got to do these cool things, it was always just a real pleasure to be able to take him on trips like that. A funny story from that trip was after freestyle was over, we got to go to the freestyle party, and I get to introduce my dad to John Smith. So I'm really pumped. Like, hey, John, this is my dad, Jack John Smith. And John says, he grabs my dad's arm. He goes, "Dang, Jack, how old are you? Take good care of yourself." And I promise it changed my dad's life. Every time I saw him after that, it was, you remember that one time, what John Smith said? And I sure do. But yeah, we got to sit in press row. We were all sitting together. That was such a fun trip. He became, he was an announcer with me out there, and such a good 10 days. Yeah.
One of my favorite things about that too is the little camera bit. I guess you could call it a Flow shenanigan, but it was I think it was Tony Rotundo. Was it Robert Whitman? Yeah, Robert Whitman and your dad, and it looked like they were in the urinals.
Envy.
And they looked down, and it's envy, but it was their camera sizes because he had big giant camera, and Jack with a point and shoot. It was one of the best bits I think that was overlooked. There's that "Don't Be That Coach," which was one of my favorite ones on Flow ever, but the envy one was because it was basically an inside joke for us there. but it had a greater appeal. That was one of my favorite ones about it.
It's funny how that worked out. My dad ended up being a cameraman. He got there, and I'm like, wait a second. His real name's John, so I'm like, I'm John Williamson, and you're John Williamson. Let's just go up and say, oh, there's a mistake. There's supposed to be two of us, and this is John Williamson, the camera operator. And they gave him a credential right there, and that's how we all got to sit together.
That's the old feel of credentialing. The old feel. I don't think you can get away with that
Wouldn't
now.
work.
There's actually, although one year, and we're in Russia, and the next year, and you had the hookup with King G.
Yeah,
yeah. Gena Kolesnikov, I think you say his name. And so with your trips to Russian Nationals, so I'm sitting there with USA Wrestling trying to get an access credential so we can get to our athletes. No, you know the guy that speaks Russian. You got a better credential than we did, and we were the NGB, and this guy with a machine gun is standing there going, no, you can't get in. It was just, how the hell does Joe get in there? We're the NGB. It was just, your international hookups and those trips to Russia really set you took a lead on us there.
Yeah. Well, I think by that time, that was like my fourth trip over there, and no matter where Russian Nationals were, there was a time in Moscow, and so it's who you know.
Yeah,
it's who you know. I don't think that would happen anymore.
Yeah, but like that guy, like he came to the States to go to college. I mean, he was working out with Iowa State. Like that's just his story is another thing. If I can get him on a podcast, he loves Team Thursday.
Oh, he certainly would. He just was always fascinated with the United States. I think learned English. He would seek us out, and then he was a guy. I think when I met him, he was like 16 or 17, and
him and his brother, right?
Took care of me and Zeb one time when we were out there, and made sure everything's okay.
That was when Zeb was like going to Yakutsk, I think it was.
No, Zeb went to Kazan.
Kazan, that's it. Yeah, the same place they had the World Universities too.
Yeah. And Gena didn't go on that trip. Another guy, Tigran.
Yeah,
another guy I met in 2008 went, but Gena ended up going. He went to Krasnoyarsk, and I think he went on another trip with Mark Bader.
And you had another connection with Maxime Molnov. Like he spent time coaching with U.S. women in the last actually he was coaching there, I guess, 2 years ago, and then he's coached everywhere. I mean, is it cool to have those? You're coming out of Blue Springs to I got friends in Russia, like Mother Russia. I know people from Ulan-Ude. I know people from I don't know. Insert Yakutsk, places there.
Certainly. Really great experience. For my personal growth, I look at those trips. It was more important to me than any education I ever got. Just really great learning experiences. And Steve Silver, if it wasn't for Steve Silver hooking me up with Maxime, I don't know if I would have made it back. Because I think that first trip I had $200, landed in Moscow, had to get to St. Petersburg and stay alive. But if it wasn't for Maxime, it would have been...
And this is before the days of Airbnb. I believe you guys were using couch surfing.
Couch
stuff
surfing,
like that.
Yeah, in Denmark, actually. My dad and I stayed with this kid, Rudy, for 10 days.
Yeah, and you brought him out with him one night, and you're like, yeah, this is the guy we're staying with. It's like, oh, wait, he doesn't know anything about wrestling? No.
Yeah, not at all. And he actually wasn't there the first 3 days. He said, just go to my parents and get the keys. I emailed him back, I'm like, dude, what if I'm crazy? You're just, but it was great. And that kid, I learned I didn't know anything when I went there because here's this younger than me. Oh,
that's Suple's bad guy again. If you heard the podcast with Dennis Papadopoulos, that's what you heard.
Yeah. Anyways, this kid putting me up and teaching me all about the world, things I didn't know, and so just lots of valuable you're problem solving and you're trying to tell stories and stay alive, and just you've traveled a lot, you understand everything that it gives you.
Circling back to what you're doing now, you're still in a relationship with Flow Sports, yet you're doing your own thing now. And explain one, you came back, you're in wrestling, you made a career out of wrestling. You're going to make a career out of wrestling. I believe the story is that when you got a call from Flow, you were going through firefighter school. You were set to be a firefighter.
Yeah.
And since you got into wrestling full time, wrestling is going to be your full-time life.
Yeah.
What are you doing with that now?
So, I love wrestling. And what I really loved when I was at Flow was the creative process and making content. And if you're watching the early days, it wasn't live events. had to find ways
It's behind
to
the scenes. It's going to Tanner Gardner's house, play Guitar Hero.
Yeah, right.
It's hanging out with Zeb, going to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just awesome stuff.
And the thing is, we had to put something out every day, and that meant lots of traveling. But if you wanted a weekend off, too, it meant, well, you have to find a way to make a cool piece of content, so you got to be really creative, and that's where some of those funny videos, things like Don't Be That.
Flow shenanigans.
Yeah, that's where that stuff came out, and I really enjoyed doing that. And I think I developed kind of an eye for, hey, this is what the community will want, or if I go do one of those coverages, picking out what to focus on. It might have been kind of raw, maybe a little sloppy, but the actual content.
Gritty, I think, is the word to use.
Right.
Gritty, gritty and raw.
It is, and that's what I loved. And, like most people at Flow, I'm climbing the ladder, and eventually in rights acquisition, and did okay there, but probably, not what I loved.
You need to be around the people. You've always been a people guy. Nobody I've ever heard has a bad thing to say about Joe Williamson. Or any Williamson for that matter.
But
there was that time with your brother in Vegas. We won't talk about that. Sorry, James.
Anyways, I moved away from Flow a little bit. Like I said, still love Flow, and I'm here, doing some videos for them. But as soon as my time there scaled back, Jason Heslop over at Blue Chip, he's looking to grow these wrestling tournaments, and said, hey, there's an opportunity for me to stay in wrestling and try being a tournament director and work on these events. He wants to call it Grow Wrestling. So I got to learn how to do a tournament, but what I can do to make people aware is go back to content and start to build a community again like that, and that will help these events, and then also scratch that itch that is me getting to be on the ground floor with wrestling and be creative and help other programs and help other tournaments. That's what it's all about.
You were in Fargo for one day, and that one day you put a video together, and just explain the social media reach of this thing. I don't want to say it went viral, but it went viral. Yeah.
So first of all, I'll say I was talking to my wife. I have one day. What do? I have to put some energy into these tournaments we're trying to grow. But it was her idea. Was, hey, why don't you ask people what if they could give themselves advice, if they go back and talk to themselves when they started wrestling, what advice would it be? And immediately knew that's a great idea. And at Fargo, there's so many amazing wrestlers there that
the access you get is amazing.
And right when it started, the things people were saying, it just really, it made the hair on my neck stand up, and I knew it was going to be a good piece. But it ended up being the first video, the first post on this Grow Wrestling Facebook page, and I think right now it's reached like 160,000 people, and I think close to 100,000
zero organic followers to start with. You're starting from zero.
Yeah.
And boom, there it is. There's your reach already.
Yeah, it was really exciting. I didn't expect it to be like that, but I think it helps to the relationships. I have a lot of people know that I'm trying to get going with something new, and made a point to help move that along. And here you're talking about it. It's a big deal. So
I love the stuff that hit the cutting room floor, which we talked about last night at dinner. I don't really want to mention it here, but let's just say there was a good quote from one Mark Strickland that didn't quite make it.
Yeah, I thought it should have been in there.
Yeah, that's on the DVD extras.
Yeah,
but that's one thing you never want to do too. Think about all the stuff you've recorded over the years that you didn't get in. That oh man, they said that, but we're probably just not going to put that in.
Yeah, I have a hard drive.
What would Joe Williamson's DVD extras? Who would be the key sound bites? Not what they're saying, but some characters that might be on that the unrated version, so to speak.
Oh, geez.
Strickland, obviously.
Yes, I mean every.
I'm sure any Fretwell comment, because some of the stuff is, "Hey man," oh sorry, he hates when I do that voice. I do it pretty good.
I thought Fretwell was right next to me. Wrestling is just a bunch of characters and also really strong personalities. and opinionated. So I don't think there's many people I came across that doesn't have a deleted scene or two.
That's why I say,
you,
that's why,
Jason.
you know what? The one thing I always wanted to do with you and one of these Flow shenanigans was back in the early days where Martin and I weren't really seeing eye to eye, but we got along.
Mm-hmm.
It was more or less a philosophical difference. And I said, when we really started working together on some things, it was like, hey, I got an idea. I'll wake up wearing a Flow shirt, look in the mirror, and be like, ah, and wake up and it'd be a dream, and you pop out wearing like a USA Wrestling shirt or Intermat shirt, wherever I was at the time, and I'd still be wearing a Flow shirt, be like, ah, we never quite got it done, but that was always what I wanted to do. I wanted to make an appearance on a Flow shenanigans, and never did. Now, when we get to wrestling and your place in this sport, you've carved out, even as part of a bigger organization, you and Bader specifically in the early years that really created that following, created a man of the people type of thing. You can go crash on anybody's couch in this country now based on what you did staying on couches back then. I mean, you've created a following. Everybody loves Joe. What does that mean to you 10 years later, looking back, man?
Well, I got the opportunity to like hang out with all these people that are like heroes, cool people. And, I also, it makes me realize they're just people too. And they're amazing. But, it feels good because, everybody wants to feel respected and feel important. And certainly I think that's some of the motivation for why I like doing content and what I get out of it. Why I should still be doing that. That piece is really important to me. And I love wrestling, and if I helped in any way, then that's a big deal. That feels a sense of accomplishment. I want to build up the sport and make sure that people see the same things that I see, and give hopefully it helps get a few more people in the door, or helps a couple people come into super fans, or maybe even if they do the same thing that I'm doing. I wanted to be a national champion, or X, Y, and Z, and ended up that the biggest impact I could have is to create content and media around the sport.
Yeah, it's just strange how the people that are, it's not like Kerry Colat's doing your job. Joe Williamson's doing your job. I mean, the elite have their elite, but you become an elite based on your work ethic. It sounds like you seem to be more comfortable being a worker bee in terms you've got to be doing something. You've got to be producing something to be, that feeling of accomplishment, the sense of accomplishment. Like when I put out a really good podcast, like, yes, I don't necessarily like maybe look at rights acquisition. Okay, we're doing good, but I need to be, I need to be in the trenches. I need to be here putting it together. It seems like that's,
I didn't feel
you're more of a, you come off like sweat equity is yes, not here. I mean, you can be up at here, but it seems like you're really not happy unless you're working.
Yeah, there's a couple parts to it. I could see I wasn't feeling wins like other people. Maybe when a good deal was signed, it's great because that means, hey, more wrestling is gonna be visible. That's something good for the sport. But I didn't feel those wins, and maybe that's why other people were better than me at that.
You're a man of the
other
people,
thing,
though. You're a man of the
being,
people.
How it feels when you're at an event, you're actually in the middle of the action, and then getting to talk to those people right after it happened, and then be a part of the way that the final product looks when people see it.
Like a Zeke Boise moment, for example, pinning Gilman, and then or the Flow highlight compilation of all the guys coming off the mat in the tunnels, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Because now you look at it, you're like, 10 years later, you'll be like, see people share that video, be like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah, and
it's got staying power.
And I'm sometimes talking to those people right during this most important moment of their life, and it actually makes me, or most probably anybody back there, emotional just to see it and feel it a little bit. That to me is priceless, and is why that's what I want to do. And doing events now, I'll still be right in the mix, right at the wrestling tournament, talking to coaches, talking to kids. Yeah, it's what makes me feel good.
Do you remember who you interviewed your first coverage for Flow? First guy.
My first interview. So my first event was.
Was that Cliff Keen?
No, my first event was NCAAs. I actually picked Martin up at the airport. I thought I was going to shadow him. He ended up handing me a camera with no juice in the battery. I didn't even know how to charge that. And he's like, all right, go interview people. At this point, I've been a little bit away from wrestling. It was super scary. So I did the NCAAs there, and I remember David Bertolino was a guy that made me feel really comfortable. So I interviewed him a lot because I felt okay. And then the Missouri guys because I knew them. But, I did that. And then I went to the NHSCA after that, which was the last one Flo did for a while. And then I went to the Reno World. So I saw college, high school, youth, and then did a coverage in Central Valley when Fresno State lost the program. So those were the first few.
Was that the one where you're driving around and they're talking about the shoes hanging from the power lines? Was it that? Did you do a tour of Fresno City when you were down there too?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Fresno City.
I remember talking
Stephen
about
Abbas. Yeah. The Clovis schools, Clovis and Selmos, Buttonheads.
I remember that. Man, it's crazy how you it seems like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Bakersfield was in there, so I got to talk to Kerr, Lake Kerr. Yeah, it's fun. It's interesting to look back at some of that stuff and see how much has changed because Flow is a completely
technology
different.
Because when Flow came around, YouTube wasn't owned by Google yet. So the technology evolved. You guys evolved with the technology, with the programming, and just like you said, the eye for content. Like, people seem to forget the internet existed before 2006. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, hey, dude, I was there doing that stuff too. And it's just funny that because the technology has evolved and you guys had stayed on top of it. Not just the programmers, but the staffing. Like, you and Bader became video editors, at like the most rudimentary level, and then now the software that you're using now is completely different. Like, you can do it on your phone now.
Yeah.
I mean, the technology has made things easier, but it's also made it more robust. It's like there's a learning curve for everything. How has technology been made easier for you?
Well, first of all, you look at the old Flow video, and each website had one or two people. I think wrestling was the first one to have two because Bader came over from Pure Fight. And we
the Pure Fight icon, I think, is still on. Yeah. Like, if I pull up my phone, when you texted me yesterday, I think the Pure Fight logo is still on the. This is bad podcasting here. There it is right there. Look, there's the blood drop. Joe.
Good, clean, fun. But then, we were editing videos, didn't know how to do it. Very, very. We know how to cut and paste and maybe put some music. And we did the design.
The compression video program, was it like something monkey, squeeze monkey, or something like that? Like when you take the video and you compress it down to an MP4. That
Visual Hub, I think is.
That was there was like a third party. Anyway, we're getting into the weeds on that.
But now, like you said, so the video, and also Flow, like what I do, probably that they actually have video editors now, like awesome, guys.
Isn't that bonkers?
Yeah. But so the video I did in Fargo, I did it on my phone. I didn't have a camera. I did everything on my iPhone. And so since then, I'm like, okay, that worked out pretty well, but it was annoying to hold. And
now you've got
now I just got this. I did some research and got this Osmo. And there's some really cool applications. And I'm going to go to Las Vegas to be with the Greco World teams there having a camp next week. And I think I could do some really cool stuff. I have a camera and then the Osmo with my phone. And I mean, I put stuff in Final Cut. You can even edit videos on your phone now. It's amazing. So it really provides opportunity. And really, you could be somewhere not expecting an opportunity to make some cool content, and now just pull your phone out, and it might not sound as great, it might look better, but you can still do a pretty dang good job. And like you said, that video,
well, the microphone's
it's got
an iPhone.
800 shares. Yeah. It was done with an iPhone.
You should have put the logo "Made with iPhone."
Yeah,
get Apple to sponsor it. But a lot of things. Where can they find out what you're doing on the web? Where can they find?
So right now, we're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and that's under Grow Wrestling. And our website is Danielle Hobika is making that right now. I was really pumped when Jason Heslop's like, "Hey, here's someone. She's great."
Like Danielle was like, she's a former recipient of the Dan Gable American Needs Wrestling Award. She was basically, whenever there was a drop program, they're calling Danielle, and she's got to sight up like immediately.
Yeah, I just saw the first run, and you get like 3 iterations, and I'm like, dude, I think we're done.
So true story. I'm going to come back to that in a second. So when Zeke Jones, and when he was the national team coach at USA Wrestling for freestyle, he's like, "Hey, you want to help me build my website?" I'm like, "Zeke, I really don't have the time to do it, but I know somebody." Mm-hmm. So I turned him over to Danielle, and within like 3 hours, she sent me a screenshot of her inbox from Zeke, and it was like 50 messages, like one after another, to tweak. I'm just going to say that her screenshots it sent to me was just subjected FML. That's all I'm going to say. But anyway, so yeah, Danielle's doing a great job.
Yeah. So luckily, Jason's at Blue Chip, some resources there.
Great guys.
That can
great
make
guys, if you
amazing. They're really great. I was lucky enough to get coached by Jason a bit during freestyle when I was in high school. It was over at Blue Springs High School. Now he's a big part of Mo West. But so getting some graphics made, getting this stuff to Danielle. The website will be out, we think, middle August.
Mm-hmm. And right now, it's like you said, Facebook, Twitter, and all that.
Yeah. So come check us out. And then our first event is October 20th. It's the Fall Brawl. This is actually the 19th year, but it's moving over to Hy-Vee Arena, which is really great place. And the NCAAs were wrestled there once, and it is boys high school, girls high school, and middle school. Pumped to add the girls division, especially with Missouri just adding it as a sport. And it will be streamed live. We'll have great coverage, and I think the competition is going to be strong.
Last story. It's a story of you, me, and your brother sitting in the mat side to Cliff Keen one year. And James is shooting some matches, and I was like, "Dude, Joe, we should do commentary like Yoda." Be like, "Oh, 2-point stalling? Yes." And it was just, we're sitting there, we're just cracking up, and I was like, this will never go in. It was like a consolation match or something. It was like, and I was like, man, we never did that either. But we did it for like that 5 minutes. And that will always be in my head. It's like me and James, like, stalling? Metcalf? He's not. Just doing all this like, Matt 2? Walter Pepperman?
You certainly found the way to my brother's heart, bringing up some Star Wars.
There is no try, only 2. Anyway, Joe, great to see you as always.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jason.
High five. Bad podcast. You can't see that. We just did the we're going
Let's do it again.
Oh, well, I got a hunch that you're going to be asking for some podcast tips here in the future. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Yep.
So that's Joe Williamson, folks.
Thanks, everyone.
The Short Time Wrestling Podcast is proudly outfitted by Compound Clothing. Shirts, singlets, custom gear orders, everything you need. Call up Cliff and the crew at cmpteamwear.com. First time listening? Well, you can change that by going to mattalkonline.com/getshorttime to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or listen on your favorite podcatcher at mattalkonline.com/listen.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to mattalkonline.com.